So yeah, my name's Ben Langley, as Sarah said. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Group PLC. So Grow is one of Europe's leading medical cannabis companies. We were one of the first movers back in 2017 when cannabis started to be legalized for prescribing again. We fundamentally believe that there are probably hundreds of millions of patients out there that ultimately actually could benefit from a form of cannabis medicine. So we exist to make sure that those patients have access to the medicines that might improve their lives. So that's our core goal. I look much younger in this picture, but believe it or not, this is me. Myself and Ian Atkinson founded the company in 2017. We met by chance in Berlin. The day actually cannabis was legalized for prescribing in Germany. Very different backgrounds, Ian and I. I'm an investment banker by training. I spent 12 years at JP Morgan, sat on the trading floor doing some commodity structures for a while. Ian's got a fantastic background in sort of science broadly. He's got some incredible patents. He's got some very successful commercializations under his belt. So very different backgrounds, but we shared the same vision, which is that cannabis is a huge opportunity for biopharma, for medicines, for patients. So we really want to focus in on getting access to as many people as possible that need it. So Grow was born of our chance meeting in Berlin in early 2017. So in terms of our mission, I mean, again, it's providing global access to quality cannabis medicines. We're a biopharmaceutical company. It's important to say that. So we're not a CBD company. You will not get our medicines in Holland and Barrett or any other. I'm not criticizing Holland and Barrett, any sort of store like that. We deal with prescribed medicines, controlled drugs, and so we very much are a biopharma company. But we specialize in medical cannabis. And we seek to be the world's, as Sarah just said, seeks to be the world's largest provider of medical cannabis by patient numbers by 2025. So I thought it might be good to take a step back. I sometimes presume people know about medical cannabis. I know that's not the case with all. So the map on the left, the orange bits are the countries that currently allow some form of prescribing of medical cannabis. Obviously, the grey ones on the right are the ones that don't. When Ian and I met in Berlin, at least the day before we met, that map was completely grey. So this is a very, very early market in that it's only just being opened up to legal prescribing by doctors. And this trend that you see in terms of the map now being very orange is being repeated worldwide. So the market opportunity is absolutely enormous. What you've got is essentially a double effect of new markets opening up pretty quickly, but also at the same time, the existing markets that opened up either months or years ago experiencing very fast growth. So in Europe in 2016, the market was zero, essentially. In 2021, it was 250 million euros. By 2030, we think it'll be around an 8 billion euro market. And that will be about a quarter of the world medical cannabis market. So we see the world at just over 30 billion euros. So very exciting market. We were relatively early, particularly in the European context, and there's a lot to play for. So just focusing on the UK, our domestic market, we're one of the leaders in the UK, and we've got around 2,500 patients, slightly more now. It ticks up every day. We really do see pretty massive growth in the UK market and almost every market in the world. The market is relatively small right now. It's early days. We see potentially 100 times growth in patient numbers over the next 3 or 4 years. And that's because of the compounded effect of doctors getting comfortable, but then telling their friends and then telling their friends and so on and so forth. So doctors are really the blockers, but also the opportunity to actually make sure that cannabis gets to patients. Right now, there's 25 that prescribe sort of very frequently. There's another 25 that prescribe less frequently. So getting those numbers up is really the key to get the sort of the 100 times growth in the UK market that I mentioned. But whatever happens, I mean, it's early days. This market will grow very fast. So in terms of, I just wanted to take another quick step back and just focus on why our model is our model. Obviously, as an entrepreneur, I set about trying to solve problems. I believe that's sort of the nature of being an entrepreneur. With medical cannabis, this is a very new industry. Well, the medical cannabis was prescribed for for thousands of years, but in terms of the new legal methods through which medical cannabis can be prescribed, this is essentially brand new. So making sure we break down the barriers with this new market is absolutely key. I'll give you an example: awareness. For instance, a chronic pain patient on opiates and having a bad experience with opiates might not know that medical cannabis may be a viable substitute for those opiates, and so might not speak with their physician about that. So making sure the public is aware is a huge opportunity. Education, making sure doctors are empowered to be able to prescribe. Doctors aren't just going to prescribe willy-nilly. They need to have the expertise, they need to have the training, so making sure we do that. Supply, cannabis is a controlled drug. It starts life as a plant. So you can imagine that the supply chain is relatively complex, and added to that, it's brand new. So again, focusing on that is important. And quality, we mean quite broadly. There's been a lack of innovation in cannabis because it's not been legal to touch the stuff. So there's a real opportunity to do research and development and really bring in new technologies to improve these medicines. So what do we do within that? Obviously, again, we try and solve those problems, and really with the patient first in every sort of thought process. So every time we're going to buy a business, expand into a geography, hire a member of staff, whatever it might be, we always ask ourselves, is this actually going to move the dial in terms of patient outcomes or accessing more patients? So with that thought process, we've actually become quite vertically integrated over the last 4 years. It's been a bit of a journey, but we've ended up with the supply chain pretty much under our control in terms of production, all the way through to distribution, branded medicines and sales, but also research and development, which I'll touch on in a second, is a really key part of our business and a differentiator. So one of the things that I wanted to sort of really drive home, because it's an important part of our model, is the sort of feedback loop, the constant feedback loop that we operate with. So these are the sort of 5 sort of divisions that we think about in terms of our business. And clearly it's a relatively sort of chronological supply chain. But the really important thing is we can get data from patient experience real time, and I'll talk in a second about how we do that. And we can use that data to inform our biotechnology. So what are we researching? What are the technologies we think that will move the dial for patients and produce better medicines? But also what we're producing, what we're wholesaling, what we're distributing, what medicines we choose to have in our portfolio of medicines at any given point. So that feedback cycle, where we're always looking at data, and I mean data in a broad sense, qualitative and quantitative, is really important to our model. And I alluded to as well that the basket of medicines, the fact that we have multiple medicines, we're always looking to improve it. I won't go into the science too far, but important to say that cannabis is a plant. It isn't the medicine itself. The medicinal compounds are in the plant, and they are many. So there's dozens of medicinally effective compounds within cannabis, the most famous two are THC and CBD. But given that it's also a relatively personalized medicine, i.e. those different compounds in different combinations will affect different people in different ways, you need a good bit of variety in your basket in order to be able to cater for as many patients as possible. So we've got about 60 medicines in our basket, our portfolio currently, across flower, extracts, advanced delivery mechanisms, including sort of capsules, things that patients will be used to seeing, inhalers, vaporizers, patches, etc. So really making sure we've got a best-in-class basket of medicines, which I think we can comfortably say we have, is a real differentiator for us. We work with top brands. It doesn't just have to be our products. We're happy to work with others. As I say, patience is the key for us. So if working with another brand moves the dial for patients, then we're very happy to. But our own branded products are really going to, I think, in the future, really be a source of great defensiveness in our model for us, because the technologies we're producing at this point are almost ready to be commercialized, can go into medicines, and ultimately they're patented technologies that can really differentiate. I won't talk about this too much, but the partnerships, distribution, we're essentially trying to get into markets in as nimble a way as possible. Sales and marketing is something I do want to just touch on quickly, because we've developed something of a special sauce, the way we go and approach doctors with medical sales liaisons, MSLs, people that can educate doctors with scientific background that really understand the plant and can talk the doctor's language and make sure people are comfortable to make sort of positive prescribing decisions. So we don't ram cannabis down anyone's throat. It's number one, we couldn't do from a regulatory perspective. But number two, it's very important that we take doctors along with us on a journey. We recognise that they don't have the training in cannabis usually. And so we're here to provide that training and make sure they're aware of their options and empowered to prescribe. So we do that in the UK, where we're one of the leaders. Ireland, we're also one of the leaders. Germany, a relatively new market for us, but we've got patients there, which is a great success. And then we've got some business that we're doing in Macedonia, Spain, and the Channel Islands. So really exciting time to actually be expanding and be truly European. I talked about data collation. I won't go too far into this, but just to say we've got an app which assists us with data collation. So this is an app that essentially collates real-world evidence from patients, obviously real time. So this is a really great asset to us. The app is a grow app called Calyx, and people don't need to be patients actually to access it. So if anyone's interested in downloading it and having a click around, it's on the App Store and Google, Android, or whatever it's called. But as I say, so the data we get from that, the verbal data we get from patients, all of the feedback we get goes into how we think about R&D. So we've got an innovation committee where we think about different products and the future of cannabis medicines. What should we be focusing on? Where are the areas we can make a real difference to patients with better medicines over time? So we've got PhD scientists in the lab you can see down bottom right who are there to execute and obviously help us come up with the ideas. And we've had some great success. So we've got a couple of technologies under patent already, much more coming this year after 3 or 4 years of work in this regard. And we really see the technologies we're coming up with as being sort of very positive for the medicines we can produce and obviously therefore for patients. So unfortunately, I can't talk too much about the text that we've got. I actually will be in a couple of weeks' time able to say far more. But anyone that's interested, please do reach out, and happy to elaborate on what we've come up with and why it's important. And then we're going to show a little video in a second to make this tangible. But we hadn't been in production previously. We essentially bought from others or white labeled from others. So we got into production in July 2021. We acquired a company called Sanoid in Spain, in the southern part of Spain near Seville. The great thing about that is it's the sunniest, literally the sunniest part of Europe. And obviously cannabis likes sun. So it's an incredibly efficient place to produce cannabis medicines. We believe we have the lowest marginal cost of production in Europe, and it's pretty big as well. We can produce around 20 tons with the current capabilities, which is around 200 million euros in value. And it can scale to 60 tons pretty quickly as the market demands. So this really empowers us, very environmentally friendly as well, as you'll hear in a second. So if you don't mind running the video, please.
Sanoid and Grow Group are leaders in the exciting and growing industry of medicinal cannabis. But with that growth, sustainability is a concern. The biggest issue with traditional indoor cultivation is the energy consumption for light, temperature and air control. And the impact is devastating. Studies in California have shown that indoor cannabis cultivation accounts for 3% of total power consumption. 20 trillion watt hours, which is the equivalent of the entire US agricultural sector, and to powering 1 million homes. And you don't want to know the resulting CO2 emissions. The footprint is huge. And Sanoid is growing in Spain, under the Andalusian sun and in soil. And our hybrid greenhouses protect our crop from aerial pollution and the occasional storms. And we use high quality water from the mountains. So our planet footprint is minimal, and we will continue to reduce it. Sanoid's sustainable way of growing benefits our profit, because it's low cost. We don't have huge energy bills, and our low cost reduces the price of medicinal cannabis, making it affordable for many, many more patients. So, from planet and profit, we are now at the third P of sustainability, people, or patients. And we, at Sanoid and Grow Group, we are building our business to help them improve their lives with medicinal cannabis sustainably.
Not sure if we can get my deck back, please.
That's okay, but we've got you. We can see and hear you. There you go.
Don't want to see too much of me. Brilliant. Okay, so yeah, hopefully that was helpful. That was Harry, who founded Sanoid and obviously has joined to grow through the acquisition, and he's an absolute rock star. In terms of our achievements, I know I'm conscious of time, so I'll sort of skim through this, but I've already talked about patients. Our UK business is now profitable, has actually been profitable for the last year, with profits growing month on month, and that's a business we're repeating throughout Europe. So extremely encouraging that the model's been proven. 5 times sales growth in 2021 to £5.2 million. But I've mentioned the long-term partnerships. I mentioned the IP portfolio. We're good at raising money. We're vertically integrated. We've got the app. And the last point I'll elaborate on in a second, but we really do, we feel, have the best team that we've seen, certainly in cannabis, which really stands us in good stead to scale. As I said at the beginning, one of the key things with being a cannabis company, we feel a responsibility to raise awareness. So one of the things we do focus on is obviously getting ourselves out there and being well known, and therefore spreading a message around the potential of these medicines. We have done a pretty good job of that. I'd say we're one of the best known cannabis companies in Europe. You can see all the people that have covered us. I was on Sky News on the Ian King show a few years ago, 2 years ago, I think it was. We had Bloomberg cover us, FT, BBC came into the distribution facility in the UK. So truly getting covered. The Telegraph said I was the 58th hottest entrepreneur in tech or something to that effect, which meant nothing to me, but it was nice to be recognised. So then in terms of achievements today, I've talked about this a lot, but I mean, the one thing I'll say is we measure ourselves by patient numbers. That's if you're a patient-focused organisation, then surely you should measure yourself by obviously efficacy and how patients' lives are improved, but also the number of patients' lives you're improving. So this and 2021 in general was a huge success for us, and we're very excited about the future, because this is just the beginning, and this is just the UK, I should say, as well. So board of directors, again, bunch of people very focused on our mission. That's the common denominator. Different skill sets, again, which I think is helpful. And we're building out the board of directors currently with 1 or 2 hires in the very near future. An executive team, as I said, that I think is absolutely first class. I mean, the way I think about it is each of these people could run a company or even grow themselves. So it makes my life as CEO and co-founder much easier to know that we've got essentially centuries of experience, without criticizing anyone's age, to call on in our leadership team. So really first class team of true subject matter experts. So in terms of financials, patient numbers again is popping up all over the place, but again, it's our key metric. Financials, I mentioned, we had 5 times, or actually 5.6 times revenue growth in 2021. So a great success, but very much the beginning, as you can see from our thoughts about where this all goes in the top right, the projected revenue. So we see continued very strong growth, combination of our existing markets growing, but also obviously moving into new markets, and also technologies coming online, our production getting ramped up, etc. So huge potential in terms of revenues. And with EBITDA, we're working towards being EBITDA neutral or positive, a little bit positive this year, roughly break even. And then from there, we expect to be EBITDA positive from 2023 onwards, with margins, EBITDA margins, that is, increasing towards sort of 40-50% in a more steady state business once some of our initial very fast growth has bedded in. So to summarize, why grow? I think that I probably didn't say, but that this is clearly one of the fastest growing industries in the world, and we're one of the leaders, certainly in Europe, in that very fast growth industry. So we think the combination of very fast growth industry and our leadership is clearly a very nice proposition, and we're ambitious as well. We're not going to stop there. We do want to be a global leader, as we've said a couple of times. Proprietary IP and in-house R&D. This is a real sort of important point in our model, as I've said again a couple of times. We've got a couple of patents under our belt, which we're extremely excited about. Again, it's a shame I can't talk more about them. But the way we think about, I think most important for the long-term model, is the way we think about feeding back patient experience in a real-time way into how we think about R&D, and making sure we're really looking at technologies that are going to make a difference and produce better medicines. So I think that's relatively unique in cannabis, relatively unique in biopharma in terms of the real-time nature of it. So I think that differentiates us clearly. Best-in-class supply chain. You saw Harry very eloquently talk about Sanoid. Again, having that asset is a huge win for us, and I think sort of underpins or is the engine in many sense of the whole model. And a proven near-term path to profits. So the UK is profitable. We expect Germany and Ireland to also be profitable this year, and then all the other things we've got coming down the pipe. We've got a clear path to profitability with them as well, which obviously will drive group profitability. And I think implicit in all those things, and I've said this a few times, is the patient numbers are key, and all four of these things drive our ability to help more and more patients over time. So that really is the key thing that binds it all up. In terms of I'll just quickly touch on our Series C. We are actually raising money at the moment. We've raised, I think, 4.5 million roughly out of 6 we've gone out for. It will close in the coming weeks, we believe. And if you want to contact Hannah to inquire about the Series C, please do. I'll leave this slide up while we're doing a Q&A, so you can see her email address there. But if for any reason you missed the email address, obviously the website growgroupplc.com is there, and you can make an inquiry through the website. But this could be the last, probably will be the last equity round we do before IPO, if we IPO this year, as is our base case. So I'm not announcing we are IPOing, but we are talking with advisors who have been appointed, and it is being considered. So again, very exciting times at Grow, and yeah, thank you for your attention. Any questions, please?
Thank you very much, Ben. Well, no wonder you were only 58th in the list.
I know, tragic.
Because you're sharing the platform with the rock star, i.e. Harry of Sanoid. And you also said that the team that you're working with are a bunch of people who are capable of running their own companies, and that you said that they make your life much easier.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have been there at that serendipitous moment when you encountered Dr. Ian Atkinson. I mean, you could never have foreseen that at all. So very briefly, in about 30 seconds, how did you meet? Where were you?
We were in Berlin at a cannabis conference. Ian had just flown in from Canada and was extremely jet lagged, and he's a real coffee fiend, so he was by the coffee machine. If I'm honest, I'd been at the conference the day before and had a few beers, being the networker that I am, and so I was also hanging onto the coffee machine, and we just got chatting over about 20 coffees, dealing with our respective tiredness. So it was just a pure chance meeting. Happened to be at a cannabis conference, but also happened to be the day that cannabis was legalized in Germany, which was the first time in Europe. So really a strangely sort of poignant moment.
So you're very comfortable saying that you are truly European. Is the ambition to be truly global? It
is, yeah. And one of the ways we sort of think about that is we've got production. We can sell that across borders very easily. We've got a trading business, which I didn't really focus on as much. It's essentially a wholesaling business, but that gives us the ability to put medicines into markets without a lot of capex, without even a lot of sort of paperwork. Really, we can just, if we've got good medicines which we do have, we can get those to markets real time. So all of that is to say that there's places in Africa, or a place in Africa. South America is certainly in scope for us. We're looking at that in terms of supply to South America, Central America, and potentially Canada, and Australasia as well. So I've listed most of the world. You will hear that, but that's the nature of having good products. If we've got good products, there is demand out there. So yeah, it's definitely something that we do expect to be global in the next few months.
Because I understand that the trading arm is the world's first international medical cannabis trading company, which is quite something. So it sounds as though you've got first mover advantage.
Yeah.
So the first question from the virtual floor is from Trevor, who says there are so many companies in this space now. What makes Grow Group different from the rest?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's a couple of answers. I mean, firstly, there are very few that are truly sort of vertically integrated that have production all the way through to R&D. And so I think certainly in the European context, that's a big differentiator. I think as well that the clarity we've got over the use of data and the importance of that. So if you look at governments around the world, but ours is particularly sort of vocal about it. If you ask them to make progress with this medicine, with the regulations, they'll come back invariably and say, show us the data. So the way we think about data, not just as a sort of show Mr. Politician, but also actually inform our business model and show Mr. Politician that we're actually building our business around the data, that's quite a sort of constructive position that people can get their heads around in politics and the public as well. So I think that feedback loop that I mentioned a couple of times from patient experience through to R&D, through our supply chain, I'm not aware, and I've been investing in cannabis as well for years before I founded Grow, I'm not aware of any company that has that same sort of thought process around how this should work. And look, we could get very grand. I mean, there's an argument that biopharma maybe should change a little bit, that 10-year sort of development cycles of products that are proven to be safe maybe aren't right. Could we release medicines more quickly across biopharma more generally, not just in cannabis? So I see this as a real opportunity to use data and empower your business and do the right thing for patients if we get this model right, which I think we have.
So in terms of your model, when I was doing my research on you, there was lots of articles about you IPOing in 2019. Here we are in 2022, and I go onto your website and you're crowdfunding via the Seeders platform, and you've already hit your target. So why not the traditional route in terms of IPO, and why Seeders?
Yeah, so Seeders, I've quite liked the idea of crowdfunding for a while. It goes to the awareness point. So, I mean, I looked at, for instance, Brewdog in terms of the way they think about getting sort of true fans of the brand in as shareholders, and they obviously use crowdfunding to achieve that. So we used Seeders as much as a marketing tool, as a fundraising tool. It was important to get our name out there. And so because we're not bad at raising money ourselves, to be honest. So but being with Seeders, being on Seeders, gave us a window to a new group of investors, which obviously was quite successful. So we're pleased we did that. But it doesn't preclude IPO thought process. We are, as I said, I think earlier, we are. I can't commit to. I clearly can't commit to it, and I'd be very stupid if I did. But we are working on IPO. We are looking at that. That's something that we do hope will happen this year. Whether it does or doesn't, clearly there's a lot of moving parts.
Okay, well, you definitely whet some potential investors, because Tim says, will the Series C fundraising qualify for EIS tax breaks? And if not, why not?
Yeah, good question. So we did, for I think the first 2 years of our existence, raise money through EIS. We found it very successful. Since then, we have struggled slightly, not struggled, but we've just been very cognizant of remaining compliant with the EIS rules, which are many. And so we've taken the decision, somewhat after a long debate, frankly, that it's better to allow some flexibility in the business in the years to come, and not because there's a 3-year sort of window for the EIS rules. To therefore not raise funds through EIS at this point, because we think the flexibility that not being EIS affords us will actually add more value to shareholders than the 30% they get back from the tax man if we were EIS. So that's the short view.
You're getting some advice from the virtual room. AIM, they're saying AIM is a lot more liquid than Aquis, and a lot more investor friendly from a tax perspective than a London main listing. So I know that you don't want to commit yourself, but AIM, Aquis, main board. Yeah,
so we've had conversations with all three. I don't want any of them to get upset and call me and sort of say you should be choosing us. But at the moment, I think because we have been EIS, and because of sort of some of the nimbleness that you get with sort of prospectus rules around acquiring companies, which we might look to do, AIM is our AIM's got its nose in front, shall we say, at this point. So again, we can't commit. Again, there's various moving parts, but AIM probably just has its nose in front at this stage.
You've achieved an awful lot since that serendipitous meeting with Dr. Atkinson. But Tim asks, Tim asks, how much have you raised from investors since you set up the company? And how much are you intending to raise before the IPO?
Yeah, so we've raised £11 million to date. That started in early 2018. Then in terms of the amounts we'll raise pre-IPO, again, because the IPO date hasn't been set, it's hard to be too precise, frankly, around the exact amount we'll raise. The 6 million we're looking for now, we expect to be the last equity raise we'll do pre-IPO. As the IPO approaches, we might do a convertible into the IPO. So I think the short answer is, I guess, that there's only a couple million more to go in terms of the visibility we've got. And I think then any future funds we need pre-IPO would be a convertible structure, which obviously therefore gives less dilution, given it'll be a discount to the market. So yeah, I think that hopefully that answers the question. But obviously, as a founding shareholder, I'm very keen to minimise dilution. So we'll certainly do our best. And all the money we raise, I mean, we've got some really great stuff in terms of capex to really expand what we can do.
So you're very proud of your portfolio of rock star colleagues who you've referenced, but you gave a little hint. You said that there's a couple of hires in the making. So I'm just wondering if this is a chief medical officer. What type of personnel are you lacking at the moment that you want?
Yeah, so we didn't list our advisory board, but we do have a lot of senior doctors involved at Grow. So yeah, it's not that we don't have doctors involved day to day, but yeah, potentially on our board, you're right. A doctor would be well placed. Doctors diversity. We are 4 white males currently, so we do want to make sure we've got both cognitive and sort of physical diversity on the board. But then also. Probably a big hitter. Well, we're working on a big hitter right now. So someone to give us the sort of gravitas that we know will carry well on things like AIM.
And that is why you were only number 58.
The other 57 were much better.
Yeah, you keep surrounding yourself with big hitters and rock stars. We have run out of time, but good luck with getting the message out to socially conscious shareholders. And well done for that patient first mantra. We wish you all the best. I can see that you've already been successful with the Seeders round, and you've been very successful in attracting the attention of our audience tonight. So Ben, thank you very much indeed. Don't be a stranger, the Chief Executive of Grow Group 58.
Yeah. That's not bad, is it? Thanks.